Jesus returned to Capernaum. It was a town on the Sea of Galilee, and it was his home base of operations. He went into a house, and people began to crowd into the house because they heard he was back in town. Soon, people that even traveled there and had been waiting, they began to flood into the house. There was even some religious leaders and teachers of the Bible law, and they were all in there listening to Jesus teach. And finally, 4 men arrived carrying on a mat a man who was paralyzed and couldn't walk. They were hoping that Jesus could heal him, and they were trying to get inside, but nobody would budge. Nobody would let him through the door, and there was no way to get in. So they began to look at the house, and they see a way to get up on the roof. So they carry the paralyzed man up on the roof. They figure exact location of where they thought Jesus was teaching. They began to dig a hole in the roof and remove tiles from the roof. And they began to lower that man down. And he came down right in front of Jesus. Jesus looked at them, and he looked at the paralyzed man, and he saw their faith. And he said to the paralyzed man, "Son, your sins are forgiven." Now those teachers of the law and religious leaders, they began to think in their mind, how dare he say that? Blasphemy. Doesn't he know only God could forgive sins? Jesus, knowing what they were thinking, answered their thoughts. He said, what would be easier? For me to say, your sins are forgiven, or get up, get your mat, and walk? But I wanted you to know that I have authority to forgive sins. And then Jesus looked at the man, he said, get up, get your belongings. You could go home now. And the man immediately rose up, got his mat, and he walked out of there praising God. The whole crowd started praising God, and they were so amazed, and they were saying, we've never seen anything like this before. Later that day, Jesus started walking down towards the lakeshore of the Sea of Galilee. And as he was walking, he seen a man sitting in a tax collector booth. His name was Matthew. He was also known as Levi. And Jesus looks at him and says, come, follow me. Immediately, Matthew gets up, he leaves his job, and he starts following Jesus. Later that afternoon, he had a big party, a big feast, and he invited other tax collectors, and he invited those that were known as sinners in the town. And they were all there eating at Matthew's house. The religious leaders, they saw this, and they told Jesus' disciples, like, how can he eat with sinners like that? Jesus, overhearing, looked at him and said, it's not the healthy who need a doctor, but the sick. And I didn't come to help people who think they're right with God. I came to help sinners turn back to God.